What are you?
Yeah.
Okay. It's freezing, is there any way we can shut that door?
Close it and drop it a little bit.
Oh, yes, we can.
And that's their health care.
Yes.
All right.
Yeah, there's always someone in there from like 7:30, 7 to. 4. So probably right. Maybe that's to,
Will it open from the outside? That would be the.
That's all. What's going
Or-
No,
Stick something in it, perfect. All right.
fall.
All right, it's 5:01, we are going to get started, let the record show that all elected appointments. Appointed board members are present. This is our candidate interview for the open board position. So we will do, does somebody have a coin? Kayla, do you have a coin? Paul, actually, you're Dan tonight. Dan is not here, Paul is Dan tonight.
Little taller, more hair.
So we'll flip and see who goes first, whoever goes first, the other person will wait outside, I'm sorry, it's cold, maybe we
We
can find
can
a place.
put them in another spot.
Okay, thank you. You wanna call heads or tails?
Yes.
It is heads.
What would you like to do, go first or second?
I'll go second.
Second, okay. So can someone, yes, he can. We'll wait till Paul gets back and whose quarter was this? While we're waiting, we have lots of questions that we want to ask, and then also kind of delve into other things that as they come up when we chat, and we're just gonna take turns asking, and then you have anything you want to add at the end. So,
Okay, we'll do.
let's wait for Paul. I don't know where he's putting in.
I think probably the next room over, just.
See.
We'll say it does a lot that, you know, you did this before and you wanted to do it again.
I'm coming out of retirement.
You know what you're, kind of what you would be getting yourself into more than this. I like that one like that. Let's go ahead and start. Paul will be back. Mary Ann, do you want to start?
I would love to start. Please tell us a bit about your educational experience and your professional background.
Okay, educational experience, I grew up in Everett, Washington, went to Manor High School.
Excuse me. Oh, and your name is?
My name is Mike Barner. I live in Gold Bar, District 2. So, again, Mariner High School, most of my education came through work. So entered into the workforce, worked my way up through, Heating Industries was really my main area that I studied. From there, I have really got into my professional career and really in leadership. So I've been in leadership probably since 1994, so it's been a few years. And working my way through Genie, became a general manager, plant manager, multiple plants. And then from there, I got into consulting. And with consulting, I've traveled around most of the states. I think I've checked off 40 of the 50 states that I've been to. Where I worked with manufacturing, I worked with government, military, hospital systems. From there, I started working with boards and helping large organizations that were starting up boards. I worked with boards to develop standard work for their board members and what to expect as far as key performance indicators, and how to progress their organization. In a nutshell.
Can I ask an additional question while we're still on education? I'm looking at your resume. And I noted on your resume that you have Simpler Consulting, an IBM company from 2004 to 2018. But then you have NTech International from 2008 to 2012. Did you work for both of those companies or was there an error in?
No, I work at both those companies. So instead of putting another line item, making it 3 pages long, I combined my experience with Simpler. So I have 15 years of experience consulting. And when I was in NTech, when I moved to Oregon for 4 years, that was when I was working with Simpler, they actually asked me to come aboard and work for NTech. And then part of the plan was to get them to be a company that was profitable, and we did that in 2 years. We sold the company, and they would move back home.
So you lived, I just was trying to understand, so you lived in Oregon, and worked at NTech, but you also worked at Simpler in Seattle during that same time?
No.
Okay.
They were the four-year break. Then.
Oh, so you left and then you went back?
Yes, I did.
Thank you, okay, because I was trying to understand how, that's two
Yeah, no,
different.
when I left Simpler, I went to NTech, and then after NTech was finished, I went back to Simpler.
Okay, thank you for clarifying, because I was confused.
Isaac?
Yeah, I was gonna ask, is there a particular issue that motivated you to run for the board?
Well, the reason I didn't run, we were gonna actually move, and then we had 2 granddaughters, 2 beautiful granddaughters that kept us here. So that was why I did not run again when it was in the election. So, but to come back, there's a lot of unfinished business that I have. But I thought when I left, we had, of my term, about 3 years was tied up in COVID. So there was a lot of, a few distractions during that time. And as far as what I wanted to do, it was really dive into the crux of how we can get out there, how we can help the community, not only the children, but the community members, see how we can form an alliance and get through some of the stuff that we're going through. Really find out what's going on and see how we can help.
So the unfinished business, what exactly, what is that you would like to?
Unfinished business, I wanted to meet with the community and really have some open forum and just be able to say what's going on. What I do for a living is really try to, what I would say is talk to the experts, and they're the experts down in this area. And what I want to do is engage not only the children, but I also want to engage the taxpayers. You know, we haven't been able to pass a bond in 30 years. Why? You know, really try to get down to what's driving all this animosity amongst our community and be able to try and figure it out and come together and work together for our most valuable assets of our children.
You'll be happy to know that we are starting those community meetings and hopefully this month. We'll have our first one.
Perfect.
Do you have any kids in volunteer work in that community?
Yes, I actually started coaching when I was 19, when I moved to the valley. And I coached some 3rd graders all the way from 3rd grade to 8th grade, in basketball, baseball. And then I have 6 children that I coached in anything that they did. It was basketball, soccer, wrestling, football. I think I have almost 20 years of coaching experience and working with the Boys and Girls Club here locally. Then I started coaching wrestling last year with my grandson. I have 3 grandchildren that will be going to this school this week. And that's Caleb just started transitional kindergarten. So then I also volunteer at the school. I've been on community boards, so a little bit.
Why are you applying for the school board and what qualifications do you have that prepared you for this?
Like previously said, it's a little bit of unfinished business, but I want to really get back into the community. Part of, seeing what happened with the last bond really inspired me to come back and say, okay, how can I help? When the position opened up, I saw that was a way that I could help. I'm sorry, the second part of your question?
What qualifications do you have that prepared you for this role?
I did serve 4 years previously on the Sultan School District Board. I have served, at Boys and Girls Club Board in Lebanon, Oregon for just under 4 years. I have approximately 10 years of working with boards in healthcare and manufacturing. As far as, like I said, setting up different standards for boards and what to expect and how to approach working with CEOs and presidents of companies.
Thank you.
You answered a lot of those right there.
Skip around.
Yeah. What was the other one? You were on the board, but is there anything else on, what would your budget priorities be?
Budget priorities. Well, first of all, have a balanced budget, so we're not negative. So one of the things that really kind of disturbed me this year is when we had such a large deficit. So one of the things that I would like to see is make sure that we are not missing the mark by so much. And what I mean by that, it's tough to go in and understand how many new children are going to come into the district, but I think we can do a better job by missing it by over or close to 100 students. That really puts a burden on the rest of the district when that happens. So one of the things that I would like to do is make sure that we are accountable. I mean, all of us and administrators are accountable to whatever budget we put forward. Next, making sure that one of the things that previously with the board, when I worked with Dan, I like to simplify it where anybody can look at it at a glance and know how we're doing. So the red and yellow and green was something that I came in and wanted to make sure that as a district, we know if we are in the red, so if we're missing our budget, we should have a reason why. And what are we doing to mitigate that and get back to a state of great or good? So that's really what to spend it on. I believe that we need to invest in our children first. So curriculum is a key point that I think that we need to make sure that we are meeting the standards, not only the state, but we're helping the teachers and provide them the tools to deliver that. So, and then next would be safety for me. Making sure that our children and all the staff are safe when they come to school. And then making sure that we have enough money to keep the lights on, you know, and those are the 3 areas that I would probably say are really important.
Could you support a board decision that you did not vote in favor of?
Yes.
Why or why not? And how would you handle public discussion afterwards?
Yes, first of all, yes. We are going to have different opinions. But one thing that you have to do is you have to have a unified front when you go forward. We may not like it, but that's where we have discussion if we have to have an executive session where we can share our differences. But if the vote is 3-2, then we have to get on board with what we're doing. We can always continue to discuss that later, but as far as going out, we need to make sure that as a board, we have that unified front. And when I was here before, we did not have that. And it was very difficult, just in meetings alone, and we were having open arguments about political issues. And that it's okay to discuss, but we shouldn't argue. I think it reflects poorly on the board. So that is my approach.
So follow up to Isaac's question now, but details. You had said make the board accountable and make sure that we meet our targets for our budgets. So we and looking at that, you know, we don't have all the details and everything else. How would you go about making sure that we are, you know, with those and stuff?
First of all, who does it well? You know, and so,
Yes, you can.
no, not me, I'm talking, let's go to other districts, go to other districts and find out who's doing it well. You know, go talk to some other people that are doing a better job than we are in certain areas. Be humble enough to go out and say, you know what, we really don't, we're not doing a good job here. What are you doing? You know, how are you projecting it? Sometimes it might be better to, get a little under and then have that surplus come January rather than have to pay back $1 million. I'm not saying be completely conservative, but, if you start to look at some historical data, one of the things when I was on the board, when we really projected out more than 75 or 80 more FTEs or students coming in, we got run. So we didn't hit it. But when we were around the 30 to 40, we pretty much hit it. So you can see our growth year over year is pretty consistent. Not saying that's the best indicator, but you know, we should start to look at study and see what history tells us, what other people are doing to hit their budgets and then learn from that and then come up with a plan.
Maria?
How will you help pull the community together around important needs in the district, such as the facilities issue?
First of all, we have to listen. We have to go out and solicit feedback. We can't pretend that we know everything in the board. So we have to go out and if it's, we bring a community to have those open forums. But we really need to listen. That's my take. As far as facilities, are you talking about increasing the facilities or building new facilities? Or are you just talking about the current?
All of the above, since the bond didn't pass,
So,
we'll be moving forward on making some decisions.
yes. So we're gonna have to communicate with the community. I mean, we started the CPAC group. That's one area that I think that we need to continue, and if not, try to market that a little bit more to bring in more people to be a voice in how we're going to progress, or how we're gonna move forward. Are we gonna run a new bond? If so, let's bring more people in and try and find out why it failed. And then really come up with a plan for that.
Thank you. I'm good. More. What are you getting off these? A lot of these have been covered.
Number 8.
If we don't ask him, though, we can ask the next candidate.
Got it. There.
We have to be pretty similar.
How would you deal with making a decision that may go against you personal beliefs? An example, the mask mandate. Many have opposed it, but districts would lose funding if they didn't follow the state guidelines. How would you handle a situation like that?
Perfect question. I was thrown in that position when that mask mandate came out.
Okay.
So, it went against what I believe. But it doesn't mean that I should vote that way. It's that, but the facts being presented in front of me. We can't have an entire school shut down because of one belief. We have to make sure that we're looking at the overall, what is good for the entire community and what's good for, you know, by making the decision, if I would have voted it was a 2-2 split. And I voted to make sure that we did continue to keep our schools open. So, even though at that time, I was then served with papers saying I was a child abuser, and all those other things and drugged through the mud publicly, it's still the right thing to do. And that's why I want to make sure that when we come back, we shouldn't be doing this type of thing. We shouldn't have those type of arguments in a school board. So, what did I do? I voted what was right. And the right thing to do was to make sure that the kids came to school, the teachers continued to teach, and all the administrators that day. It was not a forum to where we would thumb the government, that's not what we do. It's not a political stage of a school board. So that's not what we should do. We should do what's right for our community and all of our children. So even though it may have gone against what I believe, it still was the right thing to do.
What do you see as the top needs of the district academically?
Oh, academically. Well, when I was here, one of the biggest things that we had, all the kindergartners entering in to kindergarten were well below the test scores. And one of the things that I tried to drive when I was on the board was start up a transitional kindergarten or something, to prepare our kindergartners for school, whether it was working with parents, working with daycares, anything to get, this is the things that a kindergartner entering into the district has to have. First of all, you have to stop the incoming. And then from there, you can start to look and say, okay, why are we at third grade not passing our scores? You know, and then continue through and then make that list and start to work backwards and understand where we failed. And then put the appropriate steps in to resolve that. But we have to stop what's incoming because you're chasing this individual, this child, throughout most of their career all the way into maybe middle school or high school, where they're 2 or 3 years behind a big portion of their class. And which then the burden is just thrown at the end, and we wonder why sometimes our high school graduates are not prepared. It's because they've been behind since they've entered into kindergarten. So we have to fix that problem first, and then we can start to fix what the term.
What do you perceive as our biggest challenge for the district in regards to employee employment relations?
As far as employee relations, I would say there is a disparity if you look at some of the pay between upper and lower people coming into a pretty big disparity in just overall pay. Not saying pay is all of it, but it definitely runs a factor. But if you look at new teachers coming into our district, our district facilities aren't the best. And so bringing in and keeping good talent is difficult when their classrooms are cold, or they're too hot, or they're leaking, or they're flooding, or whatever it may be. So keeping a teacher just comfortable in their everyday environment is probably one of our biggest issues. And then some of the curriculum, I mean, we are behind in some areas in our curriculum, but I think that is also an area of opportunity that we can improve that might help with the morale. But also I think we need to solicit some feedback. Again, we need to listen to what some of their issues are. Have we done surveys? Have we asked them, you know, what are some of their areas that we feel that we need to improve? I can't tell you all that, but I think they could tell us a good area to start.
What attributes and behaviors, in your opinion, are essential for school board members?
One, the ability to listen. 2, the ability to make decisions that may or may not be legally, but you have to look and see what are the best things for, again, the health, safety of our children and the people that work in the district, and then also your community. You have to balance that. You can't just have one lead it all. I mean, but our children are the number one reason that we're all here. But we also have to make sure that we're accountable to our constituents in our district, making sure that we represent them appropriately as well. So we have to also listen to the community. You know, one of the things that when I was on the board previously, a lot of individuals came to the board meetings and they didn't read the packets. They just weren't prepared. And a lot of times they were making decisions on things that they just didn't really understand or they didn't read. And which led to long drawn out meetings sometimes. So. Those are probably the top ones.
Even though you've already been on the board, what is the board member's role and responsibility? How does it differ from the superintendent?
We are responsible for really working with the superintendent, and setting good goals for the superintendent of the district, but we're not, what I always like to say as a board member, we develop the what, we don't develop the how. We go in and say, this is what we'd like to see, this is what we want, you know, but we can't go in and tell them exactly how they should do that. That's where committees, administrators, they should be developing the how. So we're gonna set the vision, they go deliver.
We've got through our list of questions. Do you guys have any other questions, additional ones that you'd like to ask?
I guess I got one clarified on your resume here. So you worked for Genie Industries, 93 to 2004. So responsible for $300 million back in operating budget. 700 direct employees, reports. What was your education?
Education was coming up. I worked at GE through really learning from the shop floor up. So my education was from the floor and sending me away to learn. There's a company called Shinjitsu. They are a Toyota manufacturing consulting firm that comes in. And I was lucky enough to be one of the very first ones to be involved in all that training and offsite training. And that prepared me for really the rest of my career. So it really, I was also, my mentor, George Ellis, was mentored by Jack Welch, so from GE. So a lot of it just the school of hard knocks, learning through the ranks.
Do you have anything else that you'd like for us to know, or any questions that you have for us?
One question. What is your vision? What's your 2 to 4 year vision? What's going on?
We're gonna be developing that later tonight in our study session.
We're doing like more protocols and things
Yeah,
like
a
that, but
component of that. As we look to fill that, let's see,
Sure.
to develop going forward.
kind of try to wait until we get a full board, and then we're gonna do, workshops before, study sessions. So like the 6 o'clock study session will come in at 5, and we're gonna cover topics like that. What's our vision? We're gonna, you know, retreats and a little bit more of the team atmosphere that was possibly missing before. We kind of talked about making sure that, you know, we all have our own visions, but we want to, you know, be cohesive and get a lot more done that way.
Absolutely.
All right, thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
And realistically, Dave and I just won in the election in November. And I had just like 2 months head start on the tail end of Ed Hussman's seat when he resigned. And then Isaac is brand new this past month, so yeah, we're all pretty new, and we'll be working as a team going forward once we're fully up to 5 spots.
Awesome, thank you.
Thank you.
Paul, I'm gonna
Yep.
switch them out.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Hey, Paul, yeah, is there a restroom right here close? Yeah, right here. Thank you. Oh, jeez.
That works.
Dave, I didn't know if you had a different slide, but we are done with the first candidate interview and Paul's getting the second interview person.
For our audience, we had we had a few others that applied. Some of them weren't in the correct district that they applied for, and then a couple others just kind of backed out. So, just really happy that we have multiple people to choose from.
And the sign-in sheet is on this side in case you wanted to do public input for the.
He's gonna be the only one.
Sounds good.
Hi,
Hello, I'm back.
so we have Daniel now.
Yes.
We are going to, we have a set of questions that we will ask, and then there might be some other ones that kind of get, added on in there, and then, at the end, if there's anything you'd like to ask us, or anything else you want us to know, please feel free. And we'll go ahead, Marianne, you wanna start again?
I sure will. Do you go by Daniel or Dane?
Most everybody calls me Dan, but I usually only get Daniel when I'm in trouble with my wife, so. So Dan's good, thank you.
Okay. Can you tell us a bit about your educational and professional background?
Yeah, I mean, I'm a high school graduate, went to Spokane Community College. For a diesel heavy equipment repair associate of applied science. I also then went back the following, well, a little over a year later, but went back and completed the welding and fabrication program. Outside of that was just regular high school and everything else. And then after that, there was a lot of factory training and different jobs I've been at. With Volvo, Mac, Suzu, things like that, continuing education. For those specific manufacturers. I have also done some stuff in the real estate world. Nothing overly exciting. I just basically work with friends, family, stuff like that. But have my real estate license just renewed for the third time. There's continuing education. Parameters that go along with that as far as, keeping yourself up to date on changes in the MLS, forms, changes in fair housing policies, things like that. So that's, I guess that's my educational background. As far as work history, I spent a lot of years, obviously not on my resume, but I spent a lot of years in the customer service industry. I've pretty much been working since I was about 14. A lot of that time in food service, some of that in retail. And then in 2004, I transitioned into the heavy equipment, transportation, logistics industry. I've spent a lot of those years working on trucks and equipment. I have spent a portion of those years as well in sales and territory development roles, various positions from outside parts and service sales, equipment sales, national account manager for a company based out of the Midwest. I have been territory sales, parts of sales manager, in addition to the director of account management for a startup here in Seattle. And then I transitioned back into, I guess, the blue collar side of that industry. I've got 3 kids at home and and a wife that works, and it is kind of tough with a travel schedule as insane as a national account manager who has a 13-state territory can be. And then startups, if anybody's worked at one, can be a meat grinder as far as hours, spontaneous travel and things like that. So I went back, like I said, into the, I guess, blue collar side of that industry, just so I could be around more and not miss my kids growing up.
Thank you.
And in reviewing your resume, I see a gap between December 2019 and December 2020.
Yes, ma'am.
Can you explain that?
I sure can. In December 2019, I was working for a guy at the FedEx terminal in Redmond. When I interviewed that position, I was currently working at Rancho, which is the startup that I mentioned. And I was working, and I'm not kidding, I was probably working about 90 to 110 hours a week at that startup. I would get up at 5:30 in the morning, and most nights I was off the phone until midnight. I grew that, the, I guess, commercial side of that, their business model from almost nothing to over $100,000 a month. And then that continued for about as long as I could do that after traveling all the time. And then I went to work for the gentleman who was basically trying to cookie cutter a repair platform at a bunch of FedEx contractor terminals. And he promised me one thing, didn't deliver that, knew that I was coming out of the meat grinder, didn't want to get back into it. And was talking about potentially closing the doors if we couldn't quite get everything figured out in 3 months. And I decided at that point that I was gonna leave there, get my real estate license. And then, of course, COVID happened, and I ended up homeschooling my kids part-time for the rest of 2020.
I had one more that was regarding employment. I see that you work for the city of Redmond Public Works currently.
I do.
Would you be able to be here before 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock?
5 o'clock would be a push, 6 for sure.
Okay, my husband works for the city of Kirkland. And so
Okay.
I know his schedule,
Yes,
that's why I had to ask.
Yeah, 5 o'clock would be a push, just because sometimes I'm sure you can imagine getting off Novelty Hill can be kind of crazy. But I'm usually rolling through town right around 5:15. Unless something happens on Highway 2.
Thank you.
And then, is there a particular issue that is motivating you to run for the board?
Well, I have 3 kids in 3 different schools in this school district. I've got a high schooler that's a freshman. My son just started 6th grade, and my youngest is currently in 4th grade. You know, we like this community. We had a pretty warm welcome. You know, we're not from here, we're from Spokane. Moved to Seattle area, and I had to get out of the city and came out here. This community has been very welcoming. You know, we've been pretty involved in kids in sports and some other stuff like that, made a lot of great contacts and friends. And you know, I would like to be able to help, I guess, shape and help influence most of their time that they're not with us. You know, they're at school for most of the day. We get them the rest of the evening. I'd like to be involved in helping shape and, I guess, direct, you know, where the influence they get in that time they're not with us.
So what, in the school district or other community activities, what have you been?
Basketball and soccer. For multiple years. This is actually the first year we're not coaching there. I volunteer with my son's Sultan travel baseball team, as it's FYB baseball team. I have volunteer coached a lot of the high school girls in indoor soccer in the off season, just to help them stay up, keep, I guess, growing in their skill sets and their abilities. You know, that's most of my experience has been just in the coaching of as far as that is concerned. I have volunteered with the music department at the high school. My daughter they just did Wizard of Oz, so we volunteered building some sets and helping paint those. And then I got recruited to do some running around on the Saturday to try to replenish some refreshments at some multiple stores so they could keep the concessions open in between shows. or
Great.
Performances.
Thank you.
Mhm.
What attributes and behaviors of school board member are essential?
I think. I think being able to listen, be honest. And be accountable for what you say you're gonna do. You know, I think that. As board members, right, we represent the people, obviously not necessarily in this case. But you normally get elected to a board. I think you have a responsibility to those people that elect you. So listen, not every idea is gonna be great, and that's fine. You're not gonna, necessarily agree with everything here, and that's fine as well. But I think I think you have an obligation to listen. And if you say you're gonna follow through on that.
What do you think is a board member role and responsibility, and how is it different from the superintendent?
Well, the board member's role and responsibility is, to, I guess. The guidelines, right? Vote on, maybe it's curriculum policy, maybe it's, whatever, policy procedure, things like that. I think it's the superintendent's job to take those ideas and get them implemented in the schools. We're not in the schools every day, we don't work in the schools every day. That's not the position of the board. That's the position of the administrative side of the school district, including the superintendent.
Great.
It's the implementation,
Right.
not necessarily the formulation, but the implementation.
Could you support a decision that you did not vote in favor of? How would you handle it in public discussion afterwards?
Yes. And I think with tact is the answer to how you handle it in public. And by that, I mean, I don't think. You might not agree with something, I mean, let's not be naive, nobody's gonna agree all the time. It's never gonna happen. So, the key, I think, is. Not, to criticize. Demean or undermine. The other board members out in public. While putting a smiley face on. Or pretending everything's okay behind closed doors. I think it's supporting, maybe you don't agree with it, but if it's what's best. Support it. And in public, support the decision as a board, as a whole.
Thank you. How would you deal with making a decision that may go against your personal beliefs? For example, the mask mandates. A lot of people were opposed to the mask mandate, but districts would be spun if they didn't follow the guidelines from the state.
Sure.
And so how would you handle a situation like that?
That's a tough one. I mean, nobody likes to go along with something they don't believe in. I did propose the mask mandates. I thought it would be better if we made them optional. But when you're talking about, and I argued that on the parental side, but when you're talking about funding getting cut and real world consequences for the schools and the students, I don't really think that's a tough decision. I think you have to do what's right, which is support the students. The students aren't here, there's nobody's here. So if they don't have funding and they can't go to school, doesn't matter if, none of us are here then.
Thank you.
What would be your place?
My what?
Your budget,
My budget priorities. I think getting a bond pass would be a good start.
here,
I mean, I think getting schools and the teachers and the students what they need. I mean, every one of our schools just about is overcrowded. You know, but I think getting some money so we can remedy that situation would be really good. You know, I think that's gonna take a lot of community work. You know, bonds don't pass here very often. It's probably been a while. I don't know the exact date. Like I said, we're relatively new to the area, but I know all of the last ones I've seen have not passed. And I think that's gonna take some community work, communication with the community. Earning some trust, some transparency and communication. So we can get that money, because I mean, without the money, it's kind of hard to do stuff. You can't just wave a magic wand, unfortunately, and make a new building appear.
so
But I think that would be my biggest priority is let's get some of these kids out of these overcrowded classrooms. Let's expand some of the schools. Whether it was the original plan that just got voted down, or go back to the drawing board and come up with another plan that can get these schools, the teachers and the kids more room.
So more specifically, given the budget as it is, no bond pass, voters have, what within our existing budget would be priority?
I would probably prioritize curriculum and getting our students, I know that our schools are not performing as well as they could. And I think getting to the root cause of what that problem is, you know, to why is it we're not moving? Okay, is it a lack of, you know, is it a lack of teachers? Is it a lack of quality teachers, which I don't think is the case? You know, is it a lack of the right curriculum materials, the right books, the right, are we short books? What are we missing? What's the missing part of that equation? You know, maybe it's nothing related to any of those. Maybe we need to get more parental involvement on the backside of, you know, the education, because the teachers can't do it all. They can't make the kids go home and do homework, they can't. Where's the shortfall? And I think at that point, when you identify what the core root of the problem is, you can work from there to come up with a solution on how to remedy the issue,
Thank you.
how to fix the problem.
Anything else with that one?
No,
Okay, Marianne?
What do you perceive as the biggest personnel issue or issues between staff and the administration?
Biggest personnel issues?
Personnel, not personal.
Yes,
personnel
yeah,
issues.
personnel, yes.
HR personnel
Yes.
issues between staff and the administration.
I would probably venture to say, just because I have been on the lack of communication end, I think probably communication. I don't think you could over communicate. And if you don't set expectations, nobody knows what to deliver. Right? If you don't have solid set out parameters, guidelines with which somebody needs to operate in, how are they ever supposed to live up to those?
Thank you.
How will you help pull the community together around important needs in the district, such as facilities?
I think this goes back to getting the community involved, being transparent, and honest with what's going on. Maybe even, you know, I know there was a couple of events where we, you know, had parents' nights where they could come listen to the bond presentation. And things like that. And I think those are all great, but I think putting together more events like that, doing more things like that to get the parents in, get the kids in. You know, I know that the high school or their, I think, believe it's the Community Alliance is trying to put together their safe, their safe place or safe space Friday events again. That would be a great opportunity for the board and school staff to get involved and meet some of the parents, volunteers, meet some of the kids. And I mean, to all the kids in the school district and probably half the parents, the board is just some mythical creature that tells everybody what to do. They're, if we don't connect with the community, and if we're not honest with them, if we don't say, hey, we screwed up, or hey, we did this, or hey, here's where we're going, here's why, here's how it's gonna benefit the kids, we're gonna sit and never pass a bond. We're not gonna be able to get the money needed to fix a facility, to fix a leaky roof or a leak in the gym at the high school.
Do you have any questions for us?
What do you think the biggest challenge is? As far as community knowledge?
I will say for me personally, it's. When you say things like. Connect with the community, tell them, this, that, and the other. We do that. And we have, it's hard to get people in. Our bond presentations, we had maybe a couple people, like 2 of them. So it's difficult to get community.
Can I ask a follow-up question to that? I was unable to attend either one of those. I voted yes for the bond because I think no matter, I think the schools need money. I think the district needs money. So when were those?
They were in the evening and they were also
What time?
online. I think they started at 7, were they 7?
I thought they were 5 p.m., but I could be wrong.
And they were online also.
Yeah.
So it's, yeah.
And I think, being involved in, I think, to be candid, I think board members showing up to things like sporting events and connecting with the parents and talking with them and building a connection. Those type of things can go a really long way to, I guess, build a connection to build trust, so that when we go out and we ask for money, they're gonna trust the community and our constituents are gonna trust we're gonna do the right thing with their money. Because we candid, this isn't red. We don't have 9 gazillion people working at Microsoft with all the tax dollars that come into that city. We have working class blue collar families out here that a lot of them live paycheck to paycheck problem. And those people get really, and I'm one of them. Not paycheck to paycheck, but I'm one of those people that, you wanna know where your tax dollars are going. And if the community doesn't trust us, they're never gonna get us.
Do you guys have any other questions?
I wanted to make a comment when he asked, what do you think is the biggest challenge in the district? Negativity on social media would be one.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Yeah, you bet.
Thank you. So what happens now is we kick everyone out
Okay,
and we will discuss. And then we will invite everyone back in once we've made our decision, and pretty much. We'll let you guys come back in after we're done. It's a conference, so. As soon as everybody is gone, then we can chat, so you will.
thank you so much for your time.
Hey, Shannon, are you there? Oh, I see you
Someone
now.
that likes to-
So I guess you can
Yes.
pause and then
No.
do you want me to
You guys
text
wanna
you?
stay warm and go to these book fairs?
So.
It's in the library.
Yeah. Yep.
Right.
Okay, thank you, Dave. Just give me one more second.
Okay, like,
Oh, just on right here.
did you say one more second, Kayla, or?
Yes,
Okay. Just checking.
10 more seconds.
We have a stopwatch. Sorry, everybody, because we are usually in another room and have everything set up, but. All right, thank you. Well, meeting order, let the record reflect that all elected board members are present, and we will start with a flag salute. Oh, a little baby flag.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Paul, do we have any changes to the agenda? No. Kayla, do you have the public comment list? I know it's weird being in a different room. Public comment is our next section. I'll try to read this as quickly as I can. Our board has adopted policy procedure 1400. Policy is available online. By adopting this policy, board meetings must be conducted in a civil, orderly, and business-like manner. This means that whether we are school directors, district staff, students, members of the community, or some other guests, we must all follow the same standard of civility during school board meetings. Generally, the first item of business at every regular board meeting is public comment period, which is something we value. This is an opportunity for visitors to be recognized and make brief comments. Please keep in mind that this is the only time that the public is recognized to speak. Comments and questions during the meeting are not allowed and the board will not respond. We have a sign-in sheet for those who want to speak. Total time is 30 minutes. Each speaker has a maximum of 3 minutes. You can't donate your time to someone else. No individual may speak more than once. Public comment period is an opportunity for the board to listen to individuals on educational issues, and board members are encouraged to listen attentively. However, public comments period is not a time for dialogue between the board and the public. The board will not respond to statements, questions, or challenges made during public comment period, and there will be no back and forth dialogue. Please know that the board's silence is neutral. It is neither a signal of agreement nor disagreement with the speaker's remarks. Although the board will not engage in dialogue, the board chair or superintendent might ask a speaker a clarifying question or respond to a specific comment. If you have a specific question or issue that you would like the district to follow up on, please let us know and someone will contact you within 72 hours. Finally, please remember that your words have impact and you, not the school district, are responsible for your words. We caution all speakers that it is possible that your statements could violate the rights of others under various laws, including laws protecting privacy and laws prohibiting defamation. If you are unsure of the legal effect of your remarks, you should seek independent legal advice. In any case, we ask that you help us model for our students what a respectful and inclusive community looks like and sounds like. And Whitney, you are our first speaker.
So I just want to say, and we were being at the last application process meeting, I feel like, the questions at this meeting were pretty thorough, and I was excited to hear a different set of questions being asked for all the applicants. In looking at the applicants overall, I do have some concern though, as far as like background and ties to the school. I know that we already have 2 board members here that do have family member relatives that are tied to the school, and 1 potential applicant that would have the same ties. So my question with that is, what would the voting process look like when we're talking about teacher budgets, salaries, and potentially 2 for sure, or 3 board members not being able to be a part of those discussions? Or stepping out on those discussions. So I guess for me, it's just more of what would the voting look like, and how would that be with 3 members potentially not being able to be a part of those. My second kind of concern is, last week there was 1 applicant, now there's 2. So I'm not sure if maybe an email records request needs to be done to make sure all applicants were received on a timely basis, all before the 1st. Because it sounded like on the 7th, there was only 1 applicant that was able to participate. Overall, I just think, moving forward, there's obviously 1 seat left on the board. I'm a parent in the community. I've obviously voiced some concern about curriculum, standards, education, where we're going from here. And I hope that moving forward, the board really has those same goals and strives for education. Bonds, yes, but what are we doing with our curriculum? How are we helping our kids grow, learn, flourish in their environment? Test scores are lower, and I'd like to see those go up. So how do we help our students achieve more in the district? What can our board members do to help that? And lastly, I know there's no commitment for board members to visit schools or be in the districts on a weekly, daily, or monthly basis, but I just really feel like that's something that should be looked at a little more, like maybe implemented in a contract, where once a month you go to a school for, even just an hour. Walking through a school for an hour will show you a lot about the building. We're talking about leaks, plumbing, teachers saying that they're in full classrooms or classrooms that are too hot. That does do a lot for a teacher, and it does create added stress. So even just walking through a building for an hour, maybe once a month, even if it's not in your contract, I think it's something that you should really think about, sitting around, helping our teachers be better teachers, thriving in the environment, the way that they are when they come into the building, when they're teaching in their classroom. That attitude does reflect on kids. So giving them a positive climate to be the best teachers that they can, and helping our kids.
Thank you. Jeff. Good time there too, right?
Good evening, school board and administration. I have a nice speech here, but actually I'm going to concede on tonight out of respect for the Simon family, and ask if the board could move their segment of the meeting tonight up next on the agenda. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff. They will be next as soon as we do our candidate vote and oath of office, and then we move them to the very next thing. So we will be voting on the open Director District 2 position. We will vote by roll call, and we will start with Mary Ann. How do you vote?
For Dan.
Isaac?
I'm voting for Mike.
Dave?
I'll vote for Mike.
And I also vote for Mike. So Kayla, let the record reflect that we had 3 votes for Mike Burnell and 1 vote for Daniel. And Daniel, thank you so much for
Thanks for your time.
stepping up and coming and trying. I think we would be happy with either candidate. So we appreciate you coming, and we hope that we will see you. And Mike, want to come on up and Paul is gonna do oath of office and then, you get to sit down.
All right, so Mike, raise your right hand. Repeat after me. I, Mike Barnett,
Mike Barnett,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
or affirm
or affirm
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of Washington,
and the Constitution of the State of Washington,
and will faithfully discharge the duties of the office of the Board of Directors.
and faithfully. What was the other part of?
I got it, sorry to get it. And will faithfully discharge the duties of the office
Discharge the duties of the office
of the Board of Directors
of the Board of Directors
in School District number 311.
and School District number 311,
Director, position number 2,
Director, position number 2,
according to the best of my ability.
according to the best of my ability.
Right here.
All right, now we actually get to do something fun. And it's awesome to see so many people here. This is great. We are doing induction into Sultan Sports Hall of Fame. And who is directing this? Is it you, Scott?
I will. Good evening. This is a really exciting opportunity to, for us to induct another member into the Sultan High School Hall of Fame. I want to give a shout out to James Rowe, who reached out earlier this year and started lobbying for this gentleman to be added to our Hall of Fame. And without his tenacity of saying, hey, we really want to make sure that this happens soon. I don't know that we would be here tonight, but this is a wonderful thing. And look at the entire group that was able to come out here tonight. We are honored to add Bob Simon to the Sultan High School Hall of Fame. Bob was a member of the class of 1947. During his 4 years at Sultan High School, Bob was a positive presence on campus. Known to his friends as Cy, he was involved in multiple sports and school activities. He was student body vice president in his senior year and was part of the junior play where he flashed his acting skills in the role of the photographer. He was voted smoothest dresser, prettiest eyes, and best looking by his peers in the senior class. Bob played 4 sports during his high school years. He played baseball his freshman year. He was a 3-year letterman in both football and basketball. Bob was captain on both the football team and basketball teams. He also was earning first team honors in our league in both his junior and senior years. In football, the team went undefeated his junior year, marking the 5th consecutive season that the Turks finished with perfection. Bob started playing tennis during his sophomore year and was a standout singles player. He took 2nd place in the county championships his senior year, which was the culminating tournament. This was before they had state championships in all of our sports. Bob has been a fixture in the Sultan community. He has seen his children and his grandchildren have successes as Turks, and currently he has several great grandchildren competing as Turks and Skyhawks. Bob is a wonderful addition to the Sultan High School Hall of Fame. Welcome, Bob.
Look at the influence that you've had on all these. Absolutely, but we wanted to make sure.
Past teammates and future teammates,
Mhm.
they belong part of it.
Well, they certainly, they helped you shine and you helped them shine. Mhm.
But I really appreciate it, and I
How-
appreciate a lot of other people too that are involved in it. My coaches were
Mhm.
great,
You had your typing teacher drove you to all of your tennis matches? Is that what I heard?
Oh, yeah, kinda. He took me around, had me play individual schools,
Mm-hmm.
and I did pretty good in those, so he put me in a county.
Okay.
That's
Wonderful.
why he did it. And
Mhm.
I credit him for that too.
Yeah.
But
So, your senior year, didn't want to bring this up, but we were almost undefeated, weren't we?
almost.
Almost like last play of the game.
Seconds.
Yeah, yeah. It still might be too soon to talk about that, right?
But you know, which team?
Yeah, yeah.
We're not going to forget.
Yeah, well,
Up till
let's
then,
let it go. Let's let it go. We had an undefeated junior year. And sophomore year.
Yeah,
Mhm.
in basketball and and football,
Mm-hmm.
senior, but we went into Monroe on our last game of the season and they beat us.
Oh,
But we split with them during the 4 years. Then we won 2 and lost 2 from them.
all right.
So it was a good competitive. Some of those guys that we beat are some of my best friends.
Yeah. How many gentlemen played ball with Bob during his time?
Not a whole lot of people around.
Yeah, you're still going strong here.
Not very strong.
Yeah.
But I appreciate so much that the people that brought me here today,
You've got quite a support team, don't you?
well, got a lot of friends.
Mm-hmm.
Some are gone, but they're part of this too.
Absolutely. All right. Well, congratulations.
Well, thank you very much. That's the year I was born. 47, that's when I was born. You gotta jump on me.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Before we move on, just say you're welcome to take it off, because I know you don't wanna. Listen to Rustin or exciting.
Here, hold on. You gonna walk that out with me? Okay. Congratulations. Thank you very much, board members. Still to get older. You got your feet up? I got you. Get your feet up, Dad. Here. There you go. Keep your feet up. You're the bus.
It's funny.
I served it.
Thank you.
Hey.
Hey. You too.
Yes. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
I will trust, all right, that's what's up next. Hang tight. Yeah, most.
We're waiting for Dave to get back and then we will have that.
This is okay. I feel that. Then, yeah, that's great. Well, actually, I like it.
Okay, I'll actually.
That's legacy stuff.
Welcome back to Reading Small Town. I gave in a 6 show.
He still has 2 pair. I gave him, he has 2 pair.
So I have to do the transition.
Yeah.
I just make it worse. That's really nice.
We're just waiting for Dave to come back. Yeah, that's. So that's.
Throw that out there.
Noise.
You don't like your voice?
There's an interpretive dance. I got.
Yeah, you're making music.
Different pitches, look there, different lines. Had a bang with a stick with your long.
Oh, lower, there you go.
We're so professional as we need. Study sessions. All right, now we're waiting for Isaac. Anyone else? Okay. That was really awesome how many people already got that here. Just.
Did you see how many of the kids had his face?
Yeah.
I didn't see that. That was just really cool. All right, so we have initial enrollment discussion, and this is just kind of get started.
It is.
Yes,
It
so-
is.
You have the floor.
All right, thank you. Kayla, do we have that sheet right here?
Yeah.
Perfect. All right, so yes, directors, good evening. Director Barnell, welcome back. So yes, it is, budget season is quickly upon us. We're in the middle of March right now, and sort of the first thing the board typically does, I'll kind of go through this for the benefit of our newer directors, is establishment of an enrollment target. Now, I want to make one clarification before we start. You're going to hear terms you're going to hear a lot is FTE. FTE stands for full-time equivalency. Okay, you have a difference between head count, which is a physical person. I'm a 1.0 head count. But if I don't go to school here the entire day, I get prorated for what's called my FTE or full-time equivalency. The FTE reflects the period or the portion of the day that the student actually resides within our walls. Okay, the numbers that you see here and what we do for funding purposes are always FTE, always FTE driven. Okay, we have a tool that comes out. The legislature just finished their work last Thursday. They adjourned, and they will be putting together a tool that's called an F203. In the F203, we input the number of FTE, full-time equivalency, that we expect for each grade level, which will then in turn produce the amount of state resources that that number of students will generate. Okay, so again, important distinction between head count, the number of physical bodies that are in a building, versus FTE, which again is the prorated amount of how much those students actually reside within our building for the full day. Okay, makes sense? All right, so FTE, the numbers that you're looking off of here, we're gonna go one step further. There's several different ways that you can look at generating enrollment. Now, because we had the COVID pandemic a few years ago, it really distorted figures as far as historical values. Numbers of students plummeted significantly because students just did not engage, or we only had a limited number of count months. And so it made the data that we had for that period of time very non-usable, basically for forecasting purposes. So as far as models are concerned, you do a couple of things. You can do what's called a simple roll-up. Okay, a simple roll-up would basically say, if you have 100 kindergartners, you're going to assume that you have 100 first graders the next year. Okay, that assumes every kindergartner is going to just miraculously matriculate into the next grade the next year, and so forth and so forth. We just roll them up one grade. Okay. The next level of sophistication, there's some shortcomings in that. Again, you're making an assumption that every student is going to remain, nobody's going to leave, nobody's going to move out of your district, anything like that. So typically, many districts have found that that's a little too simplistic. So they take the next level as what we call a cohort. That cohort is a group of similar, in this case, students, similar grade. It's cohort survival. I know it sounds kind of like, something, some weird reality show or something like that. But what that means is that a group of students, let's say first graders, how many of those first graders that you have in year one reside and continue to be second graders in year two? Okay, how many move from one grade and then matriculate to the next level? It's not always 100%, because again, you have students that may move and so forth. So we go through what's called a cohort survival model. We discontinued this model last year because again, of the COVID-19 pandemic made some of the prior year data not usable for this type of purpose. But now we have at least 2 good years post-pandemic to where we feel that we can go back and look at this as a tool to aid us in projecting it more. Make sense? All right. The other thing that is of recent memory is that our enrollment that we projected for this current year for 23-24 came in significantly under what our projection was. It was about 100 over, or I should say our actual was 100 less than what we had budgeted. So we went through a process where we rolled that back manually of 80 students. We did that in November, and then the additional correction was done in January. The thought going into this budgeting year is that we want to budget very conservatively as far as our enrollment is concerned, essentially fairly flat, okay? So what we do is in this sheet here, you can see it goes back and starts with 19, 20, 20, 21, 21, 22, 22, 23, and 23, 24 by grade, okay? Pre-kindergarten or transitional kindergarten or transition to kindergarten, kindergarten through 12th grade. And you can see the amounts of students in FTE that was represented for each year. The cohort survival then said, again, those kindergartners, how many became first graders the next year? Second graders became third graders, and so on and so on. Some is greater than 100%. That might mean that you actually end up with more first graders in year two than you had kindergartners in year one. You had additional students move into your district and so forth. So we use those statistics. Another thing to keep in mind is that we have had some changes in how we do our very youngest students, what we call pre-K or TK, transitional kindergarten or transition to kindergarten. You can see at the top, there's 2 call-out notes that are at the top there, which says my name underneath there. The first one in 22-23 says TK, or what was called transitional kindergarten, were reported as kindergartners in 22-23. So the first year this was done, it was funded at the state level, and they said, take your transitional kindergartners and just lump them in with your regular kindergartners and report that number. Okay, so that created a little bit of a distortion. You had true kindergartners in with students that were under 5 years of age or in transitional kindergarten were lumped together. The second year, they decided, oh, no, we're not going to do it that way. We want to change it. So we're going to change the name of the program. It's not going to be called transitional kindergarten. It's going to be called transition to kindergarten. And it's going to be a federally funded program. So now you don't include them with your kindergartners, you report them separately. So 2 years, they changed how to report these kids differently.
So did you make adjustments for that?
Yes, so I had to, yeah, Dave, I had to change the model a little bit to kind of account for that. So let's look at that first line where it says pre-K, TK, or TTK. In red, you can see for 22-23, I put 15 in red. Those were our TK students, okay, in 22-23. In 23-24, you can see I put them in blue. Blue is transition to kindergarten, and there's 17 students. So again, not trying to overcomplicate things, but when you're looking at, okay, you have a program like that, how do those kids matriculate from a pre-K program into a kindergarten, and how are you accounting for those kids? To complicate things one step further is that this year we have a tuition-based preschool program that is at this campus, while we have a TTK program going on in Gold Bar, transition to kindergarten. The plan is for next year is to change the tuition-based preschool that is at this building to a TTK program, and there'll also be a TTK program out at Gold Bar. So we'll have a transition to kindergarten program at both campuses, where this year we have a transition to kindergarten and a paid tuition program for our preschool. Okay? Confused enough? We're trying to trace this. The reason this is important is that at this building in tuition-based preschool, we have 3-year-olds and 4-year-olds. The 4-year-olds next year will become kindergartners, but the 3-year-olds will not become kindergartners next year. So of the population that is here in the tuition-based preschool program, we have to say, how many of those kids are gonna become true kindergartners next year, and how many are remain in a transition, TTK program next year, okay? So lots of moving parts in pre-K and kindergarten between the two years. Yeah, Dave.
What about, pre-kindergarten kids that don't go to either one of those programs that are like, you know, Montessori?
Correct, so they're outside of our system, like
My granddaughter.
ECAP or something like that, yes. There are certainly programs that reside outside of the school program, ECAP would be an excellent example that they have over here. So those are programs that are run independent, they're not part of our.
Numbers don't get included at all.
If they are enrolled in those programs, these are only students that are enrolled in our program.
Probably the rest.
What I have been told, and Paul, you can kind of jump in, and the point is that, again, as we're adding, currently the program, the TTK program that is out at Gold Bar has both Sultan students and Gold Bar students. They're in there. I think 13 of the 18 will become kindergartners here at Sultan next year, and the others will become kindergartners at Gold Bar. So it's a combined class, okay? So next year, this campus will have their own program. Gold Bar will have a program. This campus will be, I would assume, exclusively students that will matriculate into this campus. But at Gold Bar, you will have students that will matriculate into Gold Bar, but some overflow from this one that will go there. I'm not trying to overly complicate things, but I just want to be clear. There is still some uncertainty as far as our pre-K and kindergarten based on all the changes that have occurred over the past 2 years. And we've changed programs multiple times and so forth. So, but we've come up with our best numbers based on all that, okay? So you can see in the far right in the yellow column where it says initial 2024-25 estimate. For pre-K, which in this case will be TTK, transition to kindergarten, we're saying 32. 14 at Gold Bar and 18 at Sultan Elementary School. So we'll have a program here, it'll have 18 students. We'll have a program at Gold Bar that will have 14 students, which will be some Gold Bar, some Sultan kids, but it will reside at Gold Bar for a total of 32 between the two campuses. We will discontinue the tuition-based preschool program next year. It will be replaced by a TTK program at this campus. Okay. Kindergarten. Okay. I guess first of all, any more questions about pre-K before I move on? I know that's a lot to wrap your head around. It's just there's been a tremendous amount of changes over the past 2 years.
You did a good job.
Okay. So let's move to kindergarten. Okay, kindergarten this year, as we've talked about a number of times, at Gold Bar, we had an extremely small kindergarten class and it really surprised us. Numbers have been very consistent, but our kindergarten class that we had at Gold Bar was essentially, we moved one teacher from kindergarten to fourth grade, Paul, I think. Fourth grade, because we just didn't have enough kindergartners to justify 3 classrooms. We only had enough for 2 classrooms. So in natural questions, I look at that, is that a 1 year anomaly? Is that a 1 year anomaly? Or are we expecting fewer kindergartners again next year at Gold Bar? I mean, is that just something that's naturally going to happen? I know that they're having their open house nights coming up. We've been getting, you might see signs that are around town as far as, you know, kindergarten registration, pre-K registration, things like that. We're trying to get a sense of the number of kindergartners to expect. This campus is pretty stable. But at Gold Bar, again, having just come off this year of having a very low, historically low number, we need to try to determine, is that going to be what to expect moving forward, or was that just kind of an anomaly? Is that just a 1 year anomaly? So I put 150 down there. I put 150 in red again. Question, is GBEK a 1 year anomaly? Question mark. How many of the SES preschool become kindergartners in 24, 25, question mark. So a little bit of uncertainty for kindergarten, but I'm saying at this point, 150 kindergarten. The other class, more straightforward. Again, you're using cohort survival. You're up by 1 class. Of those prior to next year. Yes. I'm gonna go programs. That's the SBA, SBO. So, and then down at the bottom, the total is a plus 13.23. You might say to yourself, well, you're gonna budget flat. Why is it a plus 13.23? Keep in mind, you're changing tuition-based preschool kids, which are not in the count for a TTK program next year where those kids are in the count. The swap is that what you won't have next year is you won't direct tuition payments from parents of students attending a tuition-based preschool program, but you will be able to count them for state apportionment as TTK students. It's a swap, okay? New revenue stream, but you're going to cease to have that revenue stream of tuition-based preschool students. Okay? So that's why you see that plus 13.23. Is the TTK gonna be, is it gonna be screened for certain students of the demographic? And Paul can chime in here too. I know that we look. I think to run a program here is gonna be very easy. There's enough kids to fill those 18 slot. The challenge is going to be working with ECAP. I think is a natural kind of partnership. Yeah,
we're working with ECAP right now. That's a little bit separate. You want to get into
okay,
confusion there.
okay.
TP, they kindergarten program. The screening is because it will be the exact screening process.
How are we accounting for all the new development that gets going up there in Salt Basin?
That's one of the reasons
Is that
that we were so off. Is because of all going in, we estimate.
right, or what are we doing up there? Yeah, actually,
Oh.
accurate.
Dan talks to the developers, all many are have sold, but they haven't moved in yet. So there's been a lot of discussion with the developers. Yes.
We're talking to the daycares.
It seems like we ought to send out a survey to each one of them and say, how many kids do you got? So. You know how many kids somebody's got.
They're the ones that they sold the houses, so they kind of, it's the developer and they sell. Also.
The flow analytics.
Contracted with them. They look essentially at head count. So again, yes, there is at elementary, when I talk about elementary, your head count and your FTE are usually very, very close. Okay, because you typically an elementary student resides in your building all day long. There are 1.0 for a head count. They're close or out of 1.0. So your FTE and head count are very, very close at the elementary level. Where it starts to differ is at secondary, specifically 11th and 12th grade, when you start talking about programs like Running Start and RAP and Snow Isle and things like that. Those kids are in your building for the entire day. So your head count, your FTE starts to diverge significantly.
One of the things that we do is we do work with ECAP to see how many students that they have. So right now they have 30 students enrolled. And they have 60 slots that are available. We need from them as a breakdown of their 3-year-olds and 4-year-olds to give us a better idea of who's rolling out next year. And we have a meeting with them next week. The other part of that is if you look at a gold bar, there's based on the census that just came out, I know almost a year ago. The census showed us that only 6% of our Hispanic population out there go to preschool. To target that population and gold bar students.
On the signboards, you have English on one side and Spanish on the other side, and the ones that are sprinkled around town there, and was purposeful, for what the point Paul just made. Other questions on this? Again, I realize this is a lot to kind of digest, but this first step in the budgeting process, this is the first thing is the board bring this, I will come back in 2 weeks if we make maybe some minor tweaks to this. This does include the March count. So this counts as a beginning of significantly on it. And
Aiden.
So. The challenge if you under budget is that again, you have less than called budgetable resources to put into your approved budget. Okay, you don't have as many dollars to spend. And that can potentially cause some challenges for staff and things like that. Try to find that sweet spot. Try to find a sweet spot where you kind of very, very close. Budget match, but very, very close is what you're always trying to shoot for.
Anything else?
No.
Mike, questions, comments?
Nope, but, and then the pre-K.
Yeah, I apologize, taking up so much. Didn't mean to belabor that point. There's just a lot of that pre-K, there's just been a lot of changes in a relatively short period of time. It can be confusing. So we'll plan on coming back in 2 weeks at the business meeting for a second look at this. We'd like to get a decision from the board to coincide with these. So again, the F203 module so that we can then plug these numbers, the approved numbers into that to generate the amount of dollars to work with and get our budgeting process formally started.
I think we need to look at what you have and some questions, ideas.
Reach out. Send me an email or give me a phone call. Happy to answer your questions, sit down with you and go.
The only other thing on our is board calls, guidelines, whatever we want to call them. Different districts call them different things. I think this, yeah, this is fine. Principle with operating procedures, they all have different stuff. Haley, we don't happen to have an extra copy, do we? No, just the whole, So the goal is for us as a board to come up with our own operating procedures, protocols, whatever we want to call it. I put some examples in there, like LaConner has 15 items.
I love LaConner.
Very simple.
I
Yeah.
really like, keep it simple.
Yeah, I like
Love
Connor on
Connors.
his. I did not like item number 7, will all communications within 24 hours, because I don't want to be on a chain.
I will say from experience, and Mike can probably attest
She's
to
talking
this
about me.
also. We need to have some sort of time limit in there because otherwise don't hear from people at all. So it's kind of like, well, maybe 48 hours or 72, like at least acknowledge, you know, okay, I got that kind of thing. Or if somebody asks for something, it's just an acknowledgement of like, we're gonna make yours 12 hours just for you.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's only 2 hours.
Oh, but it's just, it's more of like, if we send something out or somebody, you know, sends something out and you need a opinion or an idea.
I did not like the Walla Walla.
Not like Walla Walla.
Is the Walla Walla or is it Clover Park School District?
Yeah,
Yeah,
there's a lot.
I did.
Well, so you have to be able to digest all that, and know the rules. They got so much in there, nobody's gonna be. If you got so many rules, keep following them.
We're like audience, this is Walla Walla's.
It leads me to believe that Walla Walla has had problems in the past as to why they have so many.
And the goal, I think, for me, bringing this up is for us to. So we're all on the same page. And so we all agree on how we're gonna act. How we're gonna, you know, support decisions that are made. And I think. Kind of like when Michael's working together.
So let me ask you. Do you propose we just adopt one of theirs or take one of theirs and modify it somewhat?
I propose that we take one of theirs and modify it, it doesn't have to be modified hugely.
And who's gonna do the edit and recommendation?
Phoebe.
You wanna do that?
I will. What the hell, okay. So I think if we take, it sounds. Like you guys like.
I do.
Well, what I probably would do is we get typed out, I would email it out to everybody, and then next.
What
week-
acknowledge? Yep.
Thank you. Acknowledgement is nice, trust Taylor, just to that too. And then we would, next meeting, then we would read it and everything and make sure everybody signs off on it. We would agree to it. Approve it, sign it. Follow it. And then if we do it like next, and then Mike had some time to kind of look through them now and. So are there things on there, Dave, that you didn't like or? That you
You
wanted
know,
to take off?
I read it all through today. And there's a little bit there to digest and think about, so I reserve my comments.
So when I email you and I say, Dave,
I mean, it felt-
what are your comments?
Well, I didn't like. everyone out there.
You didn't like it.
The 24 hours.
I wanna. That on number 5 on the cost line, I will support board decisions publicly once. They are made and will not work to undermine.
You type this up, or just-
No, I'm just saying.
Yeah.
I'm gonna,
So are there anything on this list of 15 that you guys hated besides 24 hours? That you would like to get rid of?
no, I had many on the other ones that I hated, but I like to look. on it.
So. Thing on here that we would like go through it. Really quick, represent the needs and interests of all students, does everybody agree on that?
Yes.
Yes.
Do we want, do we want? To add students in the community?
Well, we're mainly
Some of the
representing
students.
students.
Community taxpayers are who pay our bills.
Right.
They're charging us with the kids.
Where they support. On bonds and levies, because my husband and I don't have any students in the school, but you're asking me to support financially through my property tax.
So let me ask you, how much of our budget do you propose we spend communicating with the community? Spending on kids. Is it? I mean,
The. Concerns or considerations of the community in mind as we do that.
the one that is. Yeah. Yeah, but it's-
For instance, that's our main thing, but then I also
All right.
can see how we might wanna add something.
At 1.1.
Or just add,
I wouldn't run them into the same sentence.
I would make it number 2 and then number.
How would you want to word that? Anyone that?
Let's see, we're also here to represent our tax district, or our district that we represent. We represent the children, that's number one, but we all have to do the community and the taxpayers. As far as just, like Mary Ann was saying, building that relationship, if we don't involve them, we're not gonna get anywhere.
I agree with you 100%.
All right, so I've got that on here, so when I email this out, I'll just ask for possible wordings of that, so think about that.
I've seen 2 different neighbors that are total polar opposites.
Pull in number 2 from Walla Walla. The board will represent the needs and impacts dollars.
That's good.
That's good.
No,
Where was that one at?
it's number two.
Walla Walla number 2.
Oh, I gave my, okay, so. They're trying to solve all problems, if there's the right person. And Cameron, if you have any comments on these, please speak up also. So, I forgot to ask you down there.
Why is it you just gonna have to shut some or down?
And I'm not sure if we've already been approached in the grocery store or not, but I know I've been cornered in Family Grocery in Gold Bar.
Yeah,
You know, what are you gonna do about this? You know, like, yeah,
and this is one of the things we're gonna discuss when we have, so we're gonna have WASDA come up and do kind of like a boot camp for all the new people. And that's one of the things we'll talk about too, because if we do not solve the problem. It's like you can listen and say, you do listen and. You know, try to direct them back to the right person.
that way they encourage the talk to somebody.
No. I mean,
No,
we've had
finish what you're-
people coming up to the podium, you know, I mean, it's like, we don't have that sort of power that they assume.
Yes, I would direct them back to Dan or VG. And every time I talk to anybody, I encourage them to come to the school board.
Yeah.
And there's always a public forum and encourage them. You know, but if you say, I agree, or if you even start to be sympathetic, you know, they will take that as,
Yeah.
You said,
you're gonna solve it. Mike said, I'm gonna solve that, so. And they'll hold on to that.
So we're good with 4.
Yes.
Okay, 5, I will support board decisions publicly once they are made and will not work to undermine those decisions. Every board director gets a say, but does not necessarily get their way. I like how that was worded.
Yes.
I don't really like that second part.
Where director gets.
yeah, that's more of a comment than a.
I like number 3 on Walla Walla. The board will lead by example. We agree to avoid words and actions that create a negative impression of an individual, the board, or the district. While we encourage debate and differing points of view, we will do it with care.
I agree.
Yeah,
Some
Yeah.
classrooms.
but with Dan, as he has his scheduled things, I think that's. It's been difficult. Some of those, but with everybody new,
So lunch.
I a lot of stuff.
Well, I mean. That's also a way of.
Volunteering in the school is good. I just always let Dan. I had during lunch at the high school, something in here about volunteering.
It was number. 6.
Numbers,
Oh,
under Walla Walla is number 6, visiting school facilities.
Yeah.
You know, when I read that sentence, I really thought that it was in what to get permission, authorization to go sit in on a.
it says.
Prepared to act, and also I would like to. Add in there, ask questions before, questions for finance, then you get a hold of Dan before the meeting. So then when the meeting comes, you've gotten a lot of your questions already answered. We're good with that?
Well. A lot.
Those questions in case they also have that question, or,
We can do that.
I mean, CC sometimes drive you crazy.
Mhm.
Then you gotta acknowledge us.
Just about that.
The only, let me clarify, the communication that you would need to acknowledge is, let's say. Dan sends a text out that says, hey, I sent you, everybody an email. Okay, I just put Kate, I mean,
I
that
do
kind
that
of thing.
too.
Yeah,
Or
or
a thumbs up.
hey, we need to set up a meeting, and what day can you guys do it, if we can like get those kind of things going, that would be great. I will exercise my ability to change my opinion or position on an issue as part of board discussions. I'm not locked into an initial stated opinion.
Position.
What is?
Are you on? Is that all?
Nine.
That's gonna be our number 10, and I like that.
Anybody have any issues with that one?
No, we're good.
Okay.
Constructive, they should be constructive conversations. All from past experience, they're
Yeah.
necessarily all constructive.
I will strive for a collaborative working relationship with all members of the board and assume positive intent. I will recognize and appreciate each board director's diverse backgrounds and experiences.
I like that one.
Isaac, you okay?
Yeah,
I will look for and recognize the positive contributions of each board director and make allowances for occasional errors or mistakes, turning mistakes into opportunities for growth.
I like that one.
I will practice, Mike, will you open?
Yeah.
I will practice fiscal responsibility and sound financial management to support our capacity to adequately fund programs and priorities.
Yes, hallelujah.
Good, as it.
Yep.
Did. I will avoid any conflict of interest or the appearance of impropriety that could result from my position as a board director.
Yep,
That's a no-brainer. I will participate in annual board self-evaluation and review of these operating principles.
I'm good.
That's fine. I will hold myself and my board colleagues accountable for upholding these operating principles.
That's number, do we want it?
So what does that mean by, like, I would hold Mary Ann accountable?
If she doesn't respond within 48 hours, she gets a hand Mary Ann and you can.
48 hours or
So-
24 hours?
It's 48 for Dave,
Okay. And 48 minutes for Cameron,
24 minutes.
24 minutes
I
for
think just
Cameron.
like.
Everybody, we're all adults here, you be hold your own.
We're all adults, but as
to
we're trying to
yourself,
work
but,
as a
you know, I'm not,
team.
yeah, but you can't start. Needling the other board members.
We can just tell me and then I'll meet them.
So if we wanna insert number 6 from Walla Walla, visiting school facilities and communicating, listening to staff. We should probably insert it. Up after the.
I've got it on here, so. We'll add it in there and then we can always move things around, if we want. A couple of things that came up when I was researching this stuff was, like board protocols as far as. When you're in a regular business meeting, not in a, study session like this, but using, Director Burnell, or what do you guys think of that? It's, board meetings are supposed to be, for Robert's rules, more formal. Where you use board director, titles, things like that. Thoughts on that?
I'd rather use Mr. Burnell, Mr. Shepherd, Mr. Huddy. Mrs. Neesland, Mrs. Goldner. If you wanna go.
Liz.
I'm a Mrs. I
You don't like Isaac Day in mine?
well, like she's talking about Robert's rules and the formality. If we wanna adopt the formality,
That's what I'm,
it's either,
do we want to do that or do we not want to do that? It's just something I saw in multiple reviews from different school districts, so.
Really.
I mean, making motion, stuff like that, I would definitely follow that sort of stuff.
but regular dialogue, I'm okay, like you're. Saying, if I understand you correctly, that through normal dialogue, first names, but then when we're making a motion.
Oh, next one.
To make formal, yeah, for the record.
Okay.
What did you guys used to do, Mike?
We did. Russ.
First name,
Yeah, we went back first day. But whatever the group is.
I don't care either way, it's just one of those things that
Either one.
popped out at me that. I wanted to do, so.
It just.
I really don't want to be director Huddy or Isaac.
Yeah.
That's what.
That's what we're gonna call it.
Yeah.
That's
That's right.
number 16.
First director.
I am number 1.
That's what that I see in a lot of the stuff that I was looking at, making sure that everybody gets the opportunity to speak once before anyone speaks. twice. They did that at, I think everybody about speaking up, but if you have board members that are unsure of speaking up or asking a question, you trying to make sure that everybody has that opportunity to speak once before anyone speaks twice. Does anybody have a problem with that?
No.
I don't think we'll have a problem with all of us speaking once, but
Are you gonna add that as a bullet?
you could add that. I'll put that right after your 24 hours.
I don't know if it needs to be bullet.
If you do bullet, would that also include your student rep to kind of keep them in too?
Yes.
All board members.
I have not done a very good job of that tonight, and I apologize.
So Walla
So far down there.
got one called, the board will establish a vision, involved to ensure the process, address accountability.
We need to add that in.
what was that?
Is that not in the governor?
No.
No,
What was the,
the vision.
Number 19 on
19, just-
all of them. Sorry.
Yeah, that's kind of,
I think we should have,
we should have something in there about our vision.
vision, our strategic plan, that all needs to be in there. So I will
Or
add
something
that
like
in there.
that.
Okay.
So I will type all of this up. I will probably. Then send it to Mary Ann so she can print up. Individual comments, just send them back to me. I don't, just try to keep the all emails down, get in the serial. Awesome, that's kind of like our first.
Yeah, we'll try.
All right. That was the last item on our agenda, we do not have executive session, correct, Paul?
Correct.
And meeting adjourned 7:28. The first mistake is just you. Can I get a motion to adjourn, please?
I make a motion to adjourn.
All in favor?
We're over the.
Anybody, I know, what, got the book in there, okay. Sorry,
No,
I think that's the whole, like, all the people here today and just the, yeah.
Okay, Dave, we are done. You can sign us off YouTube. Thank you and have a good night.
So if I can't.
Thank you.
my daughter.
Thank you.
Oh.